Okay, let us start with the next question 47. An organization uses Jenkins in CI/CD process. Each Mule package contains some of the Jenkins files and folders for configurations of CI/CD. As these files and folders are not part of actual package, they should be excluded from the deployed archive. What file can be used to exclude files and folders from the deployed archive? The option is underscore mule exclude. I've seen the documentation clearly. Underscore mule exclude is should be used. This file should be used to exclude the files and folders from deployable archive. This is the exact answer. Okay. Next, an organization is using Mulesoft to develop APIs and deploy them to Cloud Hub and on-premise targets. Recently, it has decided to enable the Runtime Fabric deployment option as well. And as Mule infrastructure is set up for this option. Okay. What can we use to deploy? Oh, simple, right? Of course, these are all options. But for CI/CD process, we prefer Mule Maven plugin. So actually, run deployment to Runtime Fabric can be done using CLI, and you can use REST APIs, or you can directly upload. All these options are correct. Actually, this question should have been a checkbox. So if there were checkboxes, I would have selected all. But as there is a radio button, I have to select one option. Um, so I would prefer, mostly in production we use Mule Maven plugin for CI/CD deployments. So I would select this in all the options. Okay, so let us go to next question. A gaming company has deployed an API on Cloud Hub VPC private space. Okay. The API must connect to a mainframe application running on customers on-premises corporate data center and also to Kafka cluster running on AWS VPC. How is access enabled for API to connect to both mainframe application and Kafka cluster? So actually, to set up communication between anypoint VPC, see anypoint VPC is also on top of AWS. Okay, it is also on top of AWS. It is all AWS VPC. So your Kafka is running on AWS. This is also running on separate VPC in AWS. And this is my customer data center. So for connectivity between anypoint VPC and AWS VPC, we can configure something called as transit gateway. And for anypoint VPC to data center, we can configure a VPN. Okay, that is the answer. So what is the first option saying? Set up a transit gateway to customers on-premise data center. No, transit gateway is for AWS VPC. So let me just Google for transit gateway. So for actually configuring the communication between multiple VPCs, there are two things. VPC peering can be used and transit gateway also can be used. So here one of the blocks says uh, what are the differences, right? So you can actually go through all these differences, but I would say in all these options, transit gateway is for setting between VPCs and AWS. So this first option is not correct. Second option, set up transit gateway with customers on-premise data center. Again, this is wrong. Third option, set up any point VPN to customers on-premise corporate data center and transit gateway to AWS VPC. This is correct. And last option says set up VPC peering with AWS VPC and customer on premises. Oh, VPC peering is okay with AWS VPC, but for customer on premise data center, it has to be a VPN. So among all, third option is the correct option. Okay, 50th question. When the Java invoke static connector in Mule application needs to invoke static method in a dependency jar. Okay, the classes are present in a jar. What are the two ways to add dependency to be visible to connectors class? So configure dependency as a shared library in the project PUM. Correct. And also add the dependency to Java class path. No. Add the dependency jar to Java class path by setting JVM parameter. Not required. Use Maven command to include dependency jar while packaging now. In the Java invoke static connector, configure the path. No. Here they are asking to choose two. Update mule-artifact.json to export the Java package. Yes, what all classes are visible within that module. We have to update inside mule-artifact.json and export it. Otherwise, it will not be visible. Correct. So these are the two options. Configure the dependency as a shared library and update. These are the two options. Correct. Next. What are the two reasons an enterprise architect would use the canonical data model in new integration project? The reason could be to have consistent data structure aligned to process. There is one reason. Because the model isolates the backend systems and supports Mule applications from change. So if the backend system changes, the format changes, our Mule applications need not change if you use canonical data model. So these are the two options. It's a theoretical question, nothing much. Next. A rate limiting policy has been applied to SOAP API published in Cloud Hub. So your application is actually hey, hold on. Again, let me read the question. A rate limiting policy has been applied to SOAP API published in Cloud Hub. So our application is implementing SOAP API. The SOAP API is deployed on Cloud Hub. That means this is the Cloud Hub VPC. VM is created for our application, and our application is exposing a SOAP API. Okay. The implementation catches errors in global handler on error propagate in the main flow for HTTP retry exhausted with HTTP status set to 429 and any other error set to 500. So in the implementation, they have a global error handler which is handling retry exhausted, which is having on error propagate with retry exhausted error. The status code is set to 429 and for any it is 500. What is the expected status when the client exceeds the quota of the calls? So rate limiting policy has been applied. So if we apply a rate limiting policy, even before the request comes to my application, even the main flow also, the policies are applied. So in the implementation, if they have caught the errors, the control will never go to the main flow, right? So the policy itself will return a HTTP status code 429, right? So what is that? HTTP status 429 as defined in HTTP retry exhausted error handler in the API. Oh, the control will never go into the application. No, this is not correct actually. HTTP status 401 unauthorized. No, this will not come. 401 will not come. HTTP status 400 from rate limiting policy violation since the call does not reach the backend. Actually, the call does not reach the backend is correct. But HTTP status is 429. If the answer contains HTTP status 429, this could have been the correct. The other option is HTTP status 500 defining any error handler in the API. So actually, the control will not go to either the application. So this and this are not correct. 401 is not correct. Actually, this could have been a correct answer, but the status code should have been 429. Definitely, I tried applying rate limiting policy, and if the rate limiting policy is applied, I was getting 429, definitely not 400. And the reason is correct. The call does not reach the back. So all options are wrong. But since we know finally I get 429 as the status code, I would go with this, either this or this. But I definitely know 429 is the status code. Actually, all answers are wrong. Actually, this is the question which came in the certification exam. So I don't know why they have given. Um, among all, I would choose this given. I would select anyone. That's all. So I'm done with all the questions and I've given the answers to the best of my knowledge. Okay. So hope if you got clarity, I hope you liked this explanations and I hope definitely you will be able to clear the certification exam. I got actually I gave this question paper in answers to some of my students uh, even before I created this course. With whatever answers I gave, they were able to clear the certification exam also easily. So all the answers most are correct to most of my knowledge. I hope you will be able to clear the certification exam after going through this. All the best and please give a review if you like this. If you have liked this, make sure that you give 5-star rating, right? And definitely I'll know that you'll pass certification exam after going through all these explanations. All the best for your MCIA exam. Thank you for patiently listening all the lectures. Thank you. And that's the end of this course.